What's going on, y'all? Welcome into Believe in Kentucky alongside Cole Park. My name is Vinny Hardy. If you're watching, listening, whatever you do, rate, review, give us 5 stars. We would appreciate all of that. Tell your friends about us. That old school word of mouth works as well. Cole, we'll have to pick up where we started last week, and that's with the Batcast. Before we do so, we need to bring our guest in.
Mhm.
Everybody that listens and watches anything UK related knows this man because he is the head honcho at BBN tonight on LEX 18. We got Madison County strong in the building because he's from Richmond like yourself. We got
There
Keith
you go.
Flummer up in here, man. What's going
Hey,
on, Keith?
Richmond represent.
Yeah. Hey, all's good. Just I'm not the head honcho there now. It's a team effort.
Okay,
We
okay.
got. I'm just kidding. We got a big team though, for real, at BBN tonight. So it's been good to be a part of that.
Absolutely. Especially like everybody out of state. Yeah, it's the connection and y'all keep everybody clued in and tuned in. We've had Joan Cats Talk Wednesday with TB and myself, both of us not in Kentucky, and how, hey man, we appreciate everything that y'all do. So glad to have you on here this evening, man.
Of course, appreciate the invite.
And I definitely got some randomness because look, it is like Cole, like you said last week, it was May the 13th or whatever it was. Today's May the 19th, so still not a whole lot going on. We're gonna get to our Bat Cats and UK women's golf and things of that nature. But I'll get to a little random Madison County with y'all before we get off here too. So that'll be fun. I've been saving some questions just for the two of y'all. But our Bat Cats just finished up going one and done in Hoover, dropping the game to Vanderbilt. Cole, you put the tweet out. If you're a Reds fan, you get flashbacks. You'll have PTSD. Let's see if I can bring it up here. But that's it in a nutshell. Kentucky baseball led this game and seemed in control of its tournament fate. And that'll be a deep line drive in the left field by Johnston. It'll be a home run instead of making an 8-4 ball game. Brutal, fellas. Keith, Cole, man. Story of the season.
Yeah, I mean, it's felt like this team has just always kind of gotten in its own way at times. Obviously, there's some issues in the team, whether you want to look at the bullpen, which, as we talked about, has just been not full on bad, but inconsistent. You know, the same guys who are giving you great outings will look really poor the next time they're out. You just don't know what you're going to get from these guys. And it was another tough game for them today. I mean, they got out to a big lead. You know, they hit a couple homers early. They got out 4-1. Jelkin was looking great, and it looked like he had maybe something wrong with his back, maybe a little bit of a spasm there at one point. He chose to stay in the game, and then it really got away from him in the sixth. And when I say it got away from him, it got away from him fast. He had 2 outs and no runners on, and then it was a walk. And that walk was followed by 4 straight singles that ultimately led to Vanderbilt taking the lead in the game. And it was a lead they would never relinquish. That tweet was all lighthearted, all in good fun, but that home run didn't help matters, but it was already 6-4 by the time that happened to make it 8-4. Ultimately, Kentucky scored 1 run in the the top of the ninth to make it a little bit closer, but at the end of the day, Kentucky goes down. Jelkin gave you a great start until he didn't. Jack Sams came out of the bullpen, and then Niall Adcock came in and gave up the home run. But right now, I mean, you were looking at a scenario where Kentucky was leading, and Vanderbilt was staring down the barrel of missing the NCAA tournament for the first time since 2005, only the third time ever under Tim Corbett, and they still might. But it's a rough place to be for Kentucky. I'm having a story coming out tonight that there is still reason to believe the Bad Cats could be in the NCAA tournament field. The RPI is still pretty strong in the 30s. They've got 13 SEC wins, though that's not a guarantee. That's kind of the golden number they try to get to. There's a lot of reasons to think they can be in, but there's also, by way of losing this game and not really knowing what Vanderbilt's going to do, not really, kind of being at the mercy of bid thieves around the country, you're going to be sweating it right up until Selection Sunday. You're going to be sweating and paying attention to every single game that's happening nationally to make sure, just hoping that there's not that many bid thieves out there this year.
Yeah, you got to really hope that the teams that are supposed to win those conference tournaments are going to make the runs like all the way through. Like, I don't like this word, but chalk. You know, you got to hope that all the higher seeds go on and just keep advancing, and that'll help Kentucky out because, as you mentioned, that magic number of 13. You know, once they got that, remember the other night, Minjione was like, "Hey, you all do the math. It's never happened before. Probably has to be a time when it might happen. I don't know if it's with this team or not. You mentioned the RPI, but they've certainly had their issues, as you mentioned, in the bullpen, but also just the injuries that have kind of plagued them through the year. And one of the things that Minjione told us was that, this is a smaller roster than he's dealt with in the past. And I think that's been difficult to kind of deal with, putting I think it was first baseman at catcher. And, there were all these guys that were playing backup catcher that hadn't caught in a long time, because they had so many injuries at that position, just dealing with some of those that they've had. And so, yeah, it's been a tough season. So hopefully they get that chance to prove that they belong in the NCAA tournament and they can, hit the road, because we know if they make it, that's what they're going to be doing, and kind of prove everybody wrong.
Yeah, it was a cruel twist of fate going into the SEC tournament against a Vanderbilt. That you don't have Braxton Van Cleve. Obviously, he was the hero in that win against Vanderbilt in the regular season with that grand slam. He was still out with that facial issues from his collision with Camden Kozil against Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
I personally wouldn't expect him to play even if they make the tournament. I wouldn't expect him to be back. And then Ryan Schwartz does not travel with the team. I don't believe he's injured, but he did not travel with the Bad Cats down to Hoover. And that leaves you a little bit depleted as is. You had injury issues all throughout the year in all kinds of positions. You don't know the severity of Jelkin. I mean, his back looked like it spasmed, and after he came out of the game, I mean, they were massaging his arm. They were kind of doing some stuff to him. In the dugout, you hope that's just wear and tear stuff, but that could also be a really pivotal thing to look at as you look at a at-large resume. I really think that this single game was the worst case scenario for Kentucky, because not only do you not get that win to pretty much lock you in, you lose to a Vanderbilt team that also has 13 SEC wins, RPI in much worse shape than yours, but now they have a chance to maybe go on a run in the conference tournament. We'll see. I mean, they haven't shown an ability to compete at the top of the SEC this year necessarily. They're where they are for a reason, but they're the same as Kentucky in the sense that they can beat good teams. They certainly have proven they're able to. They just couldn't really finish the deal, and now they have a chance to maybe go on a run and boost that RPI up a whole lot. So not only are you watching bid thieves around the country for Kentucky, you're watching the team that you lost to today and hoping that they don't get another one.
So starting off 3-0, Keith, with the sweep of Alabama to begin SEC play, could you envision a scenario? I mean, they go 10-17 in conference the rest of the way. Could you envision them having to scrap and claw and drag themselves to get to that quote unquote magical 13th win unless they become the exception to the rule? Did you foresee it playing out this way?
No, certainly not. Not back then. And, from all things that we had seen, it was a pretty good team that Minjione put together and that he retained. I mean, to get Tyler Bell to come back and play another season at Kentucky, I mean, wow, we've been fortunate. So, I don't know. It's again, I just kind of go back to some of it feels like we're talking basketball, right? Go back to some of the injuries and how that affected them throughout the season. And, you got to keep in mind, they did fight and claw to get what they got. Unfortunately, if they could have probably just gotten one series win, we might not be sitting here talking about there's question marks for selections Monday, and now we have to sit there and hope that things fall into their favor now, and that they aren't that team that's the first one to get to 13 and fall out.
Yeah, and I would also add that the unprecedented nature comes in having 13 wins with an RPI that they do. Teams have certainly gotten to 13 and missed before, just not with an RPI as strong as Kentucky has this year. And to your point, I mean, you look back at this resume they have, you just think that if you'd have gotten one more against Missouri, for example, or one more against South Carolina, or any of these teams that you feel like you're better than that aren't projected in the field, if you could have just got one or two more of those games, you're not sweating what you're sweating now. You have more than 13. You're easily in the field that this loss doesn't matter, but just one thing or another, something kept coming up, whether it was an injury in the lineup making them a little bit depleted, whether it was the bullpen struggling in a game when those guys had previous good outings, no matter what it was, the hitting slumping or the hitting being great. It's so varied that now you're looking at a situation where you really don't know your own fate. You're really up to the mercy of the committee. And we don't necessarily know. I mean, the committee has made some points to say that they're closely tracking the RPI as always, but they're also maybe looking at some of those cancellations. Kentucky's one of those teams that had a cancellation. They canceled the Northern Kentucky game. So I don't know. I don't know what the committee's going to do. I would say, like we've said, based on historical precedents, they should be in the field with the RPI where it is with the 13 SEC wins, but we really just don't know. And it's wholly up to some of those just missed opportunities throughout the season that they're in this position in the first place, especially after sweeping Alabama, a team that went on to be pretty great in the SEC to start things.
Yeah. Got a quote, like a post-game quote from Micah Butel. And let's see, talks about men's post game. All wins and losses are not created equal. 5-4 versus projected number 1 seeds. 5 plays away from 18 SEC wins. All true. That 5 plays away from 18 wins. I don't know, PTSD. That gave me flashbacks of Mark Stoops, the last 7-5 season when he said we're 2 plays away from 9-3. You gotta find a way to make those plays if we're that close. If you make those 2 plays, Kentucky's 9-3. His whole tenure goes differently. And I'm not saying Minge is about to spiral downward, but I'm just 5 plays away from 18 wins, 2 wins away from 9-3. Ugh.
I know you do look though at the 5-4 against projected number 1 seeds. That's pretty impressive. And again, you go back to the RPI. I can't subscribe to 5 plays or whatever it was away. I mean, that's probably going to happen to a lot of teams. They wish they had 5-6 plays back to help them improve for whatever seeding or getting into a tournament or that kind of thing. That's probably a season thing. Minge that goes back to when a story I did with Minge and Josh Teeter, and they literally took a measuring stick and realized how close he was to getting more birdies. And it could just be agonizing on you when you realize how close you are to making the PGA Tour, from, just being a foot away, let's say, from birdie putts that would have put you on the PGA Tour. And so now he's breaking it down for this team, saying 5 plays away. I like it. And I like the fact that they were right there, but at the same time, you didn't get the job done. Today you had the chance up 4-1 and then you give up 7 unanswered. I mean, it's tough to break it down that minutely.
Yeah.
And you look at Kentucky this season, 6 SEC losses that were by 1 run. I mean, it's tough to swallow that. And I also would point out that another point he made, they've never been swept this season. That's something you do have to take into account as well. And I'm not going to, I also am one of those who says I can't subscribe to the so many plays away from this, but I'm not going to clown on Mingione for that. I mean, at this stage, it's basically it's like recruiting. You're basically just pleading your case to the committee instead of to a recruit. In this instance, you're doing your best. But I also grew up like you in Richmond and in the South, and we always had a phrase that almost only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. So at the end, you look at this you can see this with football teams too. How many times have you seen, if 1 possession games had gone differently, they'd have this record instead of this one. I mean, that's true. But at the end of the day, the record is what the record is. The resume is what the resume is. And you're at the mercy of you're having to plead your case in the way some other teams aren't necessarily having to do right now.
Yeah.
That's a great way of putting it. Yeah.
That's it. I mean, it's just, that stat that they beat every SEC team in every series. So, we didn't get swept. That means we can consistently beat everybody, but also get beaten consistently by everybody because you went 1-2 in all but 2 series. So you just really mid and just right there, trying to get over that hump and just so hopefully things go their way. Hopefully there is a lot of chalk, even though you don't like that word, Keith.
I don't know why it bothers me, but anyway, yeah. True. I do. You do have to hope that that's the way it goes.
Yep.
Yeah, you also have to hope the committee contrary to what Vinny just said, you have to hope the committee sees that less of you can get beat by anybody and more that you can beat yourself against anybody. I mean, you have to hope the committee views that more as games Kentucky itself gave away as opposed to just got beaten.
Yeah. So that fine line, hold your breath, and just nervous moments for the next little bit. What are you thinking about basketball, Keith? The Malachi Marino watch and the way the roster comes together, because it's also that time of year as well.
How about that tweet from him today?
Yeah, the eyes.
Yeah. I think Sierra tweeted out or quote tweeted it and said, "Use your words," like with the meme. Said, "Use your words. Don't just give us that eyeball thing,"
And you really don't know what that means, if that's a good sign or a bad sign for Kentucky fans. It comes, I think, a day after a recent mock draft had Malachi higher than Jaden Quaintance as far as the,
right?
I think it was like 23, 24. So it's certainly, as we've spoken about in the last few weeks in the show, and we want to speak out with you as well. It's one that when it first got announced, you're like, okay, sure. And now all of us are sweating it a lot more than we thought we would when it started. That stock is rising. We heard Mark Pope is out there watching him today. I believe, that staff is out there watching him today. So we'll see. I've maintained that right up until he says he's not coming back, I'm maintaining some confidence that he will come back, that they've prioritized him. He was their number one piece in building this roster, but it still is certainly a lot scarier than anyone would have wanted to admit when he first decided to test these waters.
I agree, especially when we heard him at the NBA Combine. I think that's when I started to worry a little bit, just because he wasn't saying there was a certain number it had to be at
right.
if he wanted to consider going on. That he's going to talk to his brother and his inner circle and all that. And I'm like, oh, okay, wait, maybe he's really taking this a little more seriously. And like you mentioned, that pick there, as high as it is, not everybody has been as high on him, but there are some that are. And then he had the pro day today. I think I saw 30 teams were in attendance for that. So maybe that's why we get the eyeballs. Maybe he felt like it went great. I don't know. That's what leaves you wondering, because you don't know. He didn't use his words, and so we don't know what he's really thinking. I think if he were to come back for one season, I think there's a chance he could really be a leader on this team, even as just a sophomore. I mean, think about it. He wasn't even, as a freshman, projected to play as much as he did. We thought Jaden Quaintance was going to get the bulk of those minutes, and he was just going to come in and kind of learn a little bit. And then he turns out being the leader, winning a game for the Cats, against LSU. He's a terrific passer. I mean, that's what could be selling some people right now, how well he passes the ball. So I think if he were to come back, I think we could see him really improve his stock, and maybe he moves up to a lottery. I haven't looked. I don't know how strong the draft is for next year. So that would have to factor into a decision of whether or not you think there are more bigs coming out next year, or if there aren't, maybe you wait a year and you move up a lot higher in people's expectations and projections. So certainly still a long way to go. What is it, the 27th, and today's the 19th. So still got a little time to make that decision. But, as you said, some of the things he's starting to say is making you a little more nervous about it.
Yeah, and it's interesting that listening to some of those interviews, we almost got more confirmation that Milan is going to come back to college as opposed to Malachi, because he was a lot more blunt about, if it's a two-way kind of contract, I'd probably be better off going to college. Malachi did not say that. Yeah. Malachi left it very up in the air that he's going, no matter what it is, no matter what number, what kind of contract, he's going to have to talk to his circle and see what that means. I'm with you personally. I think that if he does come back, he could be stellar. He could be a lottery pick next year. I mean, I'm looking at this guy who, to your point, we thought was going to play behind Brandon Garrison, and then once JQ was healthy, he was going to be third string. There wasn't as many high expectations out of high school for Malachi as there was some of these other guys, but he surprised everybody. You pointed out the LSU shot. I'd also point out his assist numbers against Mississippi State. That ended up being a blowout, largely because they were able to use him as a facilitator the way that Amari Williams played the year prior. I mean, they really let him play that role, and Kentucky ended up rolling in that game. So he showed so much potential, and I can understand why he's where he's at now. I'm catching up on some of my reading when I'm a bit younger. I was reading John Calipari's book the other day, Success is the Only Option, or something like that. And his point was that the NBA, whether it should be or not, the draft is based on potential, not necessarily what you are now. So if a team
Right.
sees that potential in their development, they're going to take him. And that is what's leaving Kentucky fans so worried, because I don't really think there's a lot of people out there right now saying Malachi Moreno is ready to start in the NBA.
Right.
But you're worried that some team is going to see that potential and want to develop him in-house as opposed to, somewhere else. You see the way the Celtics are developing Amari Williams, the way other guys have been taken as more raw prospects to be grown up in an NBA system to play the way they want them to play. And that kind of leaves things a lot more up in the air.
Mm-hmm. I think also you got to remember, like, a lot of guys are coming back to college. Why?
Mm-hmm.
You can make a lot more money, right? You can make a lot more money. Now, I don't know if that's, everything to Malachi. I mean, maybe he feels like he's made so much money already at UK and that he can continue to do that at the next level. And so he's got to look at that guaranteed money or non-guaranteed money, and he's got to bet on himself. He's got to say, can I make it now there, even if I got to play a lot of G League games? Or, and think about that too. Like, I was talking with Tom Leach the other day about this, like G League, how many fans really go to those games? How many guys are really that physical? Can you come back to an SEC that's really physical and really going to challenge you and play in front of some terrific arenas where even Kentucky's going to pack them out no matter what. And it's going to be, as Cal said, T-shirt night and all that. I mean, the thrill of it all and the learning he would do coming back. I mean, and again, can probably make more money than being the 23rd pick even. Then, maybe he does come back for that reason.
As high a priority is for Kentucky, you think he probably would make more than a late first round pick would get if retaining him is pretty vital to Mark Hope being where he wants to be in year 3. Yeah, I'm sure they're going to do whatever they can financially to make it worth his while to come back.
And some news that's tangentially related to that point, we're just getting now from CBS, former Kansas Star forward Flory Badunga, who committed to Louisville on April 12th, going through the NBA draft process. Allegedly, he is now signed with Louisville officially. So that's an interesting point to note as well as you look at this draft and who's available, who's up there, who's being mocked. Apparently, Badunga is now signed with Louisville, according to Chris Hummer and Matt Zenitz of CBS Sports. So that is an interesting ripple to this as well. I mean, who else is going to be there? Do you think, if you're Malachi, that this might be your best chance? Because you don't, to Keith's point, you wonder who's going to be in the class next year. But as I've said, with Malachi, it's more specifically what bigs are in the class next year. Because, it might be a weaker draft class, but if there's more bigs, you might have a better chance right now. All of these things are going to come into play for Malachi and his little group, as he's discussed, his brother, his agent, all the people that are involved in this decision-making process.
Wasn't next year's draft projected to be weaker than this year? I think, you got all the star freshmen this year, and it was so, star-studded, but I don't think it was that much marquee power going into next year, unless I'm mistaken.
That was my assumption that I was under. I was under the assumption that next year's class was generally recognized as weaker than this one was. I mean, this one might be a little bit more top-heavy per se, but I was under the assumption as well that next year's class isn't going to have necessarily the star power that this one does.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, come back and, like you said, Keith, eat in the SEC, in a physical league, show growth where you were weak. There was little areas where naturally you're gonna need to be stronger coming from high school to this level, and show strength and improvements there. In addition to what we already see naturally with the ceiling that he has, and you can really, that value next year, like you said, lottery or wherever, it's there, and you're already getting paid to do it here, and
Yeah, I mean, what do you guys see as improvements if he comes back? I think it'd have to be like a little bit of, going a little further out on the court. I'm not saying he's got to be a 3-point shooter, but I think going a little further out, right? Maybe I think number one for him would be getting control of the ball.
Yeah. I would say finishing
knocked
around
out
the
his
rim.
hands, or he didn't catch a pass or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's like being strong with the ball has to be number one on his list. Yep. And maybe just adding some bulk, which will happen no matter which choice he makes. He's going to get bigger, but I think those are probably the two things that come to mind for me, or like extending his shot and taking care of the ball.
Yeah, I would add, to the point about taking care of the ball, finishing around the rim, that could always be improved for him. I would love to see him have more of that, just by way of being a freshman to a sophomore, having the more muscle to be more confident down low, finishing down there. And I would personally love to see the potential in him maybe doing more of what he did against Mississippi State, playing that facilitator role. You're going to be on a team next year with Zoom Diallo, Alex Wilkins, these guys who can facilitate a lot better than maybe last year's team could. If you could really get some of those numbers up and show, maybe have more chances to show your shot, which isn't a bad shot by any stretch of imagination. If you can have more chances to show your shot, finish around the rim, maybe get some of those, more high octane offensive numbers up, I could easily see that make him a lottery pick next year, because we're seeing a trend in the NBA towards more of those offensive producing bigs that, you can't just be standing down low all the time now. You have to be a scorer as well. So all of those things I think can make him immensely more valuable to the NBA and be, like we've said, a lottery pick kind of player next year if he can come back and win at Kentucky. Mark Pope made a point to say that he's got 2 goals: to win a banner with Kentucky and to go to the NBA, and they're supporting him in both of those. There's nothing stopping you from still doing both of those with coming back for another year. It's just really going to be up to how he feels his best shot is.
I mean, somebody's got to guard Wemby 40 feet out, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That dude is insane, man.
It's not going to be Chet Holmgren.
To Cole's point, that's kind of what he's talking about the league. The bigs making their own shot. The way he handles the ball is just amazing to me at his size. And, that doesn't even bring up Jokic and I don't know who else, I think heck, Hartenstein's pretty good too, but just all these bigs, it's amazing how well they have control of their body and can move at that level. And so I think that's something maybe that we could see him do a little better too, and he would learn that by coming back one more year. Of course, we're all being selfish, right? We want to see him back.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of selfishness there, but if he goes, I don't fault him. I mean, if that's his path he wants to go on, again, it's betting on himself, because who knows how long he'll be on an NBA roster for the season and how long he'll be on a G League roster for the season.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think that's a great point to point out, is that we're all coming at this from a Kentucky perspective. We all cover Kentucky. Of course, I'm not going to hate on Malachi for any choice he makes if he thinks is his best future. There's always risks involved with coming back to college.
Sure.
No one likes to say the I word for what could happen in a season. No one wants to point out that that stock can rise, but it can also fall all the same. So we're obviously coming at this from a Kentucky perspective. It's going to be what Malachi and his camp think is best for him. But I also do think that he does stand to benefit a lot coming back to Kentucky. It's just, if you think those benefits outweigh the potential risks of coming back to Kentucky as well.
Yeah, true.
Absolutely. And, with the way Pope uses the bigs, the way we saw Amari used, the point center, a lot of responsibility, facilitating, and not to pile on him, but a lot of reason I was kind of skeptical with BG coming into that Amari role, even though year 2, Pope says guys do better. It just didn't see him grasping it the same way or having the vision necessary. But like Cole, you already said, you mentioned Mississippi State game with Malachi, just kind of carving them up and kind of spurring, getting the blowout rolling. Another year of that, another year just, adjusting to college, the speed of the game, all of those things. It just, it adds to his value. It just adds to his experience. He's so young. He's still got a lot of, ball ahead of him. But you can see, if he did come back in that role, flourishing in that role, even more so than he did last year. You kind of project as a true freshman, not even expected to play. Now he knows what it's like, and then that confidence and that knowledge, it just leads to the natural progression that we think we'd see, minus that I word, Cole. Long as we,
Yeah, I mean,
long as we
it,
stay with the H word, not the I word.
yeah. I mean, and to your point too, I think that we've seen so many stellar freshmen in the game that it's easy for people to forget that it is an adjustment coming to
Yeah,
play college basketball. There's a lot of a learning curve
Yeah.
that comes into translating your game from high school to college. And for those who aren't those surefire lottery picks, one and done kind of players, year twos can tend to be a lot more productive, a lot more comfortable, and a lot, more popping on the stat sheet once you have that familiarity with what you need to do, how you need to play, the kind of players you're going against. And, it can't be understated that even with how good Malachi was last year, I mean, he was a freshman. He had freshman weight room muscles. There's a difference when no matter how good you are, when you're going against in the modern day 24-year-old players in college who have been doing this for years and
Exactly.
years
That's a
and
great
years.
point. Great point. That is. I mean, because it's gotten older, because people, like I said, people are coming back and staying in school longer because they can make more money, especially the ones that know they're not going on to the league or don't think they're going to be playing in the league, trying to improve their stock by coming back, fourth, fifth year, whatever it may be. So that is a solid point there.
Yeah, and shouting back to that Calipari book I just finished, he was talking about the difficulties freshmen have playing against 22-year-olds back when that book was published. It's
Yeah.
24, 25, 26-year-olds now. It's gotten older, like you just said.
Oh,
Crazy,
man.
crazy times. A little football, real quick. We keep seeing more and more commitments, more and more guys picking Kentucky. The latest, Miles Brown, unless somebody's committed after him. But your thoughts, Keith, on what Will Stein has done? Yet to coach a game, but since he's gotten here, the way he's handled being a first-time head coach.
Well, first off, I covered him in high school as a quarterback when I worked in Louisville, and he was at Trinity. And then I covered him at Louisville. And so now it's like just this surreal thing to see him, being the head coach at Kentucky. So really cool. And not only that, I covered some of his staff as well. So that's really neat. Knew Pete Nocto when he was running the sidelines at Bryan Station when I was here the first time. What he's done in the recruiting. First, well, let me go back to this. I saw Ty Bryant, Willie Rodriguez at a UK basketball game, and we just said, how are things going? What's it like? And they said, there's so much young energy, and that's what they seem to love, and that's what I believe is carrying over to the recruiting now. And you're getting that young energy from not just Stein, but also his staff. I mean, think about it. There's not that many that are that much older than 30, 40, maybe. And so these guys are go-getters, and they're out there. They're not taking no for an answer with these 4 and 5 stars. They're going after them. And what I like about it is that they're putting together. I think I saw it's the number 16 class right now. I think it was Rivals. We're used to seeing, okay, yeah, they might be 30th or something like that, but they're like 15th in the league, well, they're sitting at like 8th right now. They're like 16th and they're like 8th in the league for that class. Now I know there's still a long way to go in the class. The other thing is, I don't know if it's going to take this with this group or not, but like I at first I thought maybe he's going to have to win like a couple of surprise games here or there this year to keep that class intact. But I think these guys are all in. I really do. I feel like that they don't care what Kentucky can go, 3 wins this year. I think that class is still going to come and try and be the one that turns things around.
Yeah.
And that's what has me excited about it. It's the young energy that's translating to the recruiting.
I would agree. To your first point there, we wrote a story during spring ball. That was something with the O-line as well, with Cutter Leftwich. He's a younger guy as well, doesn't have a ton of experience. But when we talked to the players, I mean, you were there for a lot of that too. Those players were saying, we love it. We love that he's a young guy, because when we're going through practice, he'll get down there and he'll simulate stuff to us. He'll complain his ankle's hurting. We know he gets it. We know that he's not so far into this coaching that he's lost sight of what it is to be a player, that he can relate to us. And, in some ways he can take away our excuses, because he can say, hey, I get it. I did it. You just got to do the work. Right. So like these young coaches, it can't be understated how valuable that is, the way they're able to relate to these players in that way. I mean, you wonder how Stein has had so much success with recruiting and developing quarterbacks. He was a quarterback, and he told us flat, he's like, I don't want him to be me. I want him to be better than me. And I can tell them the pitfalls I fell into, things to watch out for, stuff like that. And, to your last point there, I also agree. I've said for a long time how valuable it is not even just the players they're landing, but the fact that as Kentucky fans, you can see Kentucky on graphics with Alabama and Texas and Georgia. Like that is revolutionary for where Kentucky was
Yeah.
not that long ago. And I agree that what he's selling and the way they're building this roster, I don't know that obviously you don't want to, have a bad season. You want to win as many games as possible, but
Yeah.
I don't know that that's make or break for this class either, because
Yeah.
you're selling them on a vision. This is year one. You're selling them on what this program can be, what you've done, what you're turning it into. And that's a good pitch. They've got a great pitch. We heard it many times from different coaches in different ways. From talking to them in the training center, you're like, look out the window. Kroger Field's right there. You can see everything right there next to you. And I think that they really do have a chance to do something really special with what they're turning Kentucky into, with that relatability, with that pitch they're selling, with everything that's happening. I wrote a column for the Cat's Paws that you think most years, this time of year, everyone's talking about basketball. Everyone's talking about what's going to happen. Everyone's talking about maybe baseball and a good year, but football is demanding that you pay attention to them with these commitments. I mean, this guy they just landed, he's a top 50 corner in the country. I mean, that's a great get for him. Also a fantastic glove in that photo. I love that glove with the skeleton effect, but just it's really spectacular to see what, before even playing a single game of football, Will Stein's been able to do at Kentucky so far.
And I would contend that the thing that's helping Kentucky out the most might be an old rival in Indiana, because what they did in their quick turnaround now means that Kentucky can go out and say, look, we can do that too. If you believe in what we're, trying to tell you and how we're going to coach you. And again, the young energy and all that. Hey, they got it turned around quick at Indiana. We can do it in a couple of years as well. And all we need is your help. And then we'll go to the portal and we'll fill in the rest.
I would also say too, I wonder how much, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here. You've done this a lot more than I have with different types of coaches, but I wonder how much it also helps to have that offensive oriented recruiting approach, because every time we talk to a defensive player, you wonder, with an offensive coach, is the defense going to slip? But every single defensive player we talked to said, no, I love it. I want us to have a good offense. I forget, I think it might've been Grant Godfrey that said, like, there were times last year where it felt like we were just trying to outlast teams. He said, as a defense, we want to know the offense is going to go score every time, because it takes some of the pressure off us and lets us go play our game. It lets us feel confident and comfortable to go play strong defense and get them the ball back as fast as possible. So I wonder too how much that also helps with selling. Not only do you want to bring in elite offensive players so you can sell on, we're going to have a great offense and we're going to light up the scoreboard, but bring in defensive players that promise too that, hey, we're going to reward your efforts. We're going to make sure if you get us the ball back, we're going to do everything we can to go score with it, put points on the board, and give you another chance to go make play on the next defensive set.
Well, first off, Vinny, I like how you stopped short of saying you're way older than me. I like how you just said you've covered more coaches, but I do like the fact that it is an offensive minded set. I mean, we obviously know Stoops was like the defensive minded thinking, and we wondered how much he was getting into the ears of offensive coordinators, and there were so many offensive coordinators. So now you got Joe Sloan, you've got Will Stein, who know what they're doing. They again have put together a nice young staff, but then he brought in the veteran Jay Bateman. So in a way, it's like, let us cook over here on offense. We're going to trust this guy. He's proven himself. And that's where you've got your veteran coach, instead that's helping lead the defense. I love every bit of the assistant coaching staff he's put together. I like the assistants to assistants, which I've never, really thought about. They said they wanted like the offensive line. Every guy across the offensive line has somebody watching him. That's pretty interesting. So you got 5 coaches like keeping an eye on one player each. And but yeah, I think focus on the offense, let Jay Bateman take care of the defense, and I think that has a possibility of being a recipe for success.
Yeah, and to your point there, sorry, I was just going to add to your point there about, you said one word that stuck out to me so heavily with the defense is trust. And that's something we've heard a lot too. And that's something that works in their favor a lot with their pitching to these defensive players. We heard it from Ty Bryant. We heard it from other guys. There's a lot of trust on the defense. That everyone we've talked to on the defense really said it's more complicated, but once you kind of get the hang of it, the reason it's so valuable is it lets you play more freely. It gives you options as a player to say, this is what I think is going to happen. I can be here, here, or here. You have options on how to do it. You trust your players to make those plays. And Ty kind of said that, he felt like once you got the hang of the defense, it gave all 12 players a chance to be the guy who makes the play, or 11 players. My apologies. I was thinking of the 12th man. I don't know where my mind's at, but all 11 players, the chance to make that kind of play and be, you have that, that your coaches trust you to give you the options to best evaluate how you want to do it. If you're a defensive player, that would sell me. It sells me that you trust me on the idea to give me the framework, give me the tools, and let me go to work. You know what I mean?
To y'all's point about defensive guys, Keith, you remember Van House, who played back in the 90s for those struggling Kentucky teams. We've had him on here. He's said it as much. I was at that 3-0 Kentucky Indiana game, I think in 95. He talks about how much pressure it is on you as a defender. If you miss one assignment, they're going to the house, and that's going to get you beat because the offense is so inept and not able to do anything. So they want to have an offense that can go out and, like in basketball, get a bucket, go get a touchdown, go get some points. So where if I do, miss a tackle or miss an assignment, not in my right gap, make a mistake, God forbid, that's not going to just kill us because we can't score points. So, yeah.
Cole, you were at the spring game?
Yes.
So I can't remember what I had to miss for, but I was not there. And so I'm just curious because I've heard some people saying, oh, man, I really liked what I saw. And I've heard other people go, I wasn't really impressed. But I know they played vanilla, right? So what did you think?
Yeah, I thought obviously, like you said, it was very vanilla. We were told that Jay Bateman ran out there with 4 plays. Four plays to the entire defense. They're going to have a whole lot more than that on any given Saturday. And even then, they made some good plays. There was a big interception that, in my mind, they still got robbed, that they got no points on it. It was one of those long 2-point attempts that was worth more points than a normal 2-point. Yeah. They picked that off, and there was no points awarded for that. Highway robbery, as far as I'm concerned.
I agree.
No, there was some great stuff, and even with the caveat of having a lot of your big stars out, a lot of your running backs, your receivers, you saw, if you're confident in what those guys can do based on prior work, all we saw, in my opinion, was young guys going out there making plays too. We saw a little bit of trickery. Shane Carr, the wide receiver from FCS level, threw a touchdown. I mean, Kenny Darby looked great. Minchie showed off the legs a little bit. He could run. I can understand if you were looking for the, to get knocked off your feet, why you might have been a little bit underwhelmed. But for me, knowing what a spring game is, knowing they weren't going to put too much on tape, knowing that it was always going to end in an offensive victory no matter what really happened out there, I loved what I saw. I thought it was great. All of my takeaways were positive. I thought Kenny Minchie looked good. I thought that the wide receivers looked really, really good, knowing that some of those top guys weren't even playing in that. I thought the defense had its moments of shining, and they looked good. They got robbed on some points, in my opinion. I loved what I saw personally.
So it was a pickup game, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
Good stuff. Like it's always like that, though. Like you said, Keith, it looks great. Oh, not impressed, or defense is 85 Bears, offense sucks, or the offense is the greatest show on turf and the defense is terrible. It's always wild variances, in the spring.
Yeah,
sure. Depending on
that is true. Nobody's, especially nowadays. I mean, we were lucky to even have one now because a lot of people are starting to, just not have a spring game. They've definitely taken them off TV. Remember when we used to have the SEC network showed every spring game, every program? Yeah. And now it's just like, nah, it's not happening. So
Indiana ran theirs during the draft.
And I mean, if that's all it was, 4 plays for the defense and, offense kind of running around, then I don't know what you're worried about. But, plus, like you said, a lot of the stars sitting out too, things like that.
I think that football's hard. We got to play as much as we can. So he was been a proponent of a spring game since he got here. So
I just think some people were hoping to see the full unleashed version of both the defense and the offense, and they didn't. I'm not going to criticize anybody that, especially if you bought a ticket. Like, I'd want to see that too if I bought a ticket. But you go into a spring game knowing it's going to be a much more neutered version of anything you're going to see, because to your point, where these games aren't getting televised anymore, Kentucky's wasn't. Indiana put theirs during the draft when they had their own player go #1 overall. It's getting more and more that teams want to show less in the spring games because, as Stein pointed out, he said it very matter of fact after, you don't know who's watching. You don't know who bought a ticket. You don't know who's trying to figure out anything they can. So you go into that with a much more, closed, less fun playbook to really show off some fundamentals, show what players can do, put on a show, give these guys some reps, but you're not going to go all out. You're not going to show everything that I think some people wanted to see. That's where I think a lot of the disappointment comes from, is people wanting to see everything and the team being smart enough to say, hey, we still got months to go before our first game. We're not going to show you everything. We're not going to go and do all the stuff necessarily that we would love to do, but we have to be smart about it right now.
Yeah. I mean, they weren't even in pads very long before they had the spring game. So it's like, you don't want to get anybody injured either,
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah, and you're looking at a situation now where Kentucky, knock on wood, barring something bad, should go into the fall with its entire roster healthy. I mean, they felt the confidence to go ahead and tell Lance Hurd, go ahead and get a little procedure done now so you're ready to go in the fall. I mean, they laid it out very clearly who all was going to be out, what was going on, and said very matter-of-factly, Stein said matter-of-factly, we're looking at a situation right now where, assuming everything stays the same, again, knock on wood, you go into the fall with every player on your team healthy. That already, as far as I'm concerned, before the season even starts, that makes you want to know. Because a lot of teams in the country cannot say that.
True.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Got to get a little random for y'all since it's Madison County's in the building. Did y'all go to the same high schools or different?
I think
Madison
so.
Central.
Yeah, Madison Central. It's the only high school there, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, well, there's Model, but they're private. So
I'm kidding. I'm joking. I'm kidding. We tell, Jeff Drummond went to Madison Central.
Okay.
And then Keith Taylor went to Berea.
Okay.
And so we always joke, and Jeff Drummond said one day, he's from the Northern Republic of Rockcastle County.
Hilarious.
Anyway.
So my question for y'all, as people who grew up in a city where maybe you had to split the fandom, everybody's Kentucky fans, but you also have EKU there. Cole Park will drop a roll Kearns on Big Blue Insider any chance he gets. I've heard it with my own ears. So how did you all grow up? Was it 85% Kentucky, 15% Eastern for your fandom personally? How did that work? And then Moorhead has the same thing. Murray, NKU. I'm talking about towns that grew up that share the fandom, that juggle Kentucky fans and the school that's in their cities. So what was that like for the two of y'all?
Well, I'll start because since I'm the old guy, I lived in the same neighborhood as Roy Kidd. And they went to our church, things like that. So like I saw him a lot, and he was like, to me, he was it, So we went to a lot of EKU football games, and then we had I'm trying to remember all the coaches. My first one was probably Max Good in basketball, and so I mean I go back to watching some really terrific players at EKU, and getting to almost kind of know them from time to time as well, seeing them around the city that's not so big, in a different time before social media and all that. And so for me, it was probably, I would say it was closer to maybe 70-30, maybe inching a little bit. Yeah, probably about 70-30, because I went to, so many EKU games and really I watched more UK than I went to. But yeah, it was just kind of special growing up in a place like that and having both. I lived kind of out close to the interstate. So Cole probably knows it was out Deacon Hills. Yes. And I remember one time I was out back playing during an EKU game, and some of the pom-pom stuff came floating down, maroon and white. I mean, that's pretty far from campus. And then I remember going the night that they had the lights for TBS game, and they had the lights that they brought in just to, because there weren't permanent lights at Roy Kidd's, whatever it was called, Hanger Field, now Roy Kidd Stadium. But, it was so cool to see the TV people there and to see a game under the lights and that kind of thing. So, yeah, it was kind of special to watch growing up.
Yeah, my grandparents actually lived in Deacon Hills for a while as well, so I know that area very well. But yeah, I also think, Vinny, you're underselling a little bit the sneaky wannabe contrarians that are Louisville fans in Richmond. There's a sneaky amount of Louisville fans in Richmond,
Oh,
and it's
wow.
That's
despicable.
new. That's
Despicable.
new.
It is newer, but it's despicable all the same.
Wow.
Um, I had one friend in particular that I played football with who now he's a man of his word. He now works for Louisville in their kind of comms department. Despicable growing up in high school with him rooting for Louisville. Oh my goodness. But all the same, for me growing up, a lot of times it was kind of similar to what you see a lot of times in soccer, where you've got your primary team and your secondary team. I think if you grew up in Richmond, you have an affinity to EKU because you're from there. You know, you go to the tailgates. I mean, if you grew up in Richmond, it's hard to go your entire life without going to at least one EKU basketball game, one EKU football game, tailgating outside, the stadium, having some fun there. So everyone there kind of had an affinity in their heart for EKU, but I feel like it was a little bit easier where they're playing at the FCS level. They're in a one bid league. Like when I was growing up, the OBC, now the ASUN, that you could kind of get away with saying, well, Kentucky's my main team. I care about Kentucky. I'd love to go to Kentucky. But like for a lot of people in Richmond, even if they like Kentucky more, it's likely they go to more EKU games on average because they tend to be more affordable. It's right there in your town, and it's a lot of fun. So I always grew up with a healthy mixture of my family being UK fans, but loving EKU all the same, wanting to go there as much as possible, loving whenever EKU made the tournament, made some noise there. I went to a lot of EKU football games growing up, playing on the hill, when I was a kid, throwing a football around, going to some basketball games. Mine was moved because of the pandemic, but my high school, we always graduated in EKU's gymnasiums. There's a lot of that, kind of centered around there. So I'll always drop a roll Kearns because I love EKU. I grew up going to EKU. I like to joke that being an idiot in high school, there's not a lot of buildings on that campus I haven't gotten into through means that maybe I shouldn't have been in those buildings at a certain time, but everyone knows sneaking into Weaver Gymnasium to play some basketball with your buddies until someone comes and kicks you out of there. So there's a lot of great memories on EKU's campus. My middle school, Madison Middle, which is now moved, I think, used to be right up against EKU, so you're always right there. I'll always love EKU, but for the most part, most people I grew up with, I would say, were primarily Kentucky fans with a love in their heart for EKU and also going to those games as well.
And so the vibe in town was same way. I mean, that's why y'all personally, and then you go out and about, the feeling, a lot of pride for EKU, but still everybody's Kentucky fans too. That's why I wanted to just ask y'all, as two people that grew up in a place where you gotta juggle the fandom, split the fandom. I don't know if I'm using the right word, but you got eyes on two squads basically, because not everybody in the state has that.
Hey, the Raising Cane's has a maroon big one, the way the Lexington one has a blue one. So EKU's ingrained in the town. You go to Walmart in the same way every Walmart everywhere has merch of the local teams. There's a bunch of EKU stuff in there. So it was a lot of fun growing up, kind of being able to do both, I guess. I don't think that there's some people who tend to love one or the other more. There's some people who would be UK fans and not care as much about EKU, but for the most part, it didn't really seem like it had to be contradictory that you could like EKU and UK. There was a love for both of them, and going to EKU games growing up was always a really fun and special occurrence.
Yeah. It was actually kind of I don't know what the word is for it. Not a faux pas, but like if somebody from Richmond went to Western Kentucky, that was in my day, that was actually like somebody going to Louisville or something, like, wow, you're going to Western because they were so hated and they went up against each other and everything. So that was, kind of a different time. They probably hadn't gone against each other much since you've been around, Cole, but we had the Madison County Sports Hall of Fame this past weekend. And that was pretty cool. There've been several UK people going. Marquis Estel's gone in. Dominique Hawkins has gone in. He actually went in for a second time this year because they put in the 2012-2013 team. Because they do teams and then they do individuals as well. And two others that went in were Damian Harris and Luke Stocker.
My guy, New England Patriots legend.
Yeah. And Luke Stocker went in as well. So that was kind of cool to see.
Even though he went to Tennessee.
Unfortunately, Damian didn't make it in for it. He had something else going on, but Luke was there, and he's a massive human being. It was pretty cool to see him.
Yeah, even though
I'll rep Damian Harris every day of the week. We'll just ignore where he went to high school. He went to, I don't even remember where he went to high school. Some school that does not matter at all, down in Berea, but might as well be a 1A school for all I'm concerned. But no, and I remember just some memories growing up. Dominique Hawkins. I remember they put it on television when the Madison Central was in the state title game. I think I was in Champs Bar and Grill in the bowling alley watching that game when Madison Central won the state title. Whenever every day I went to school at Madison Central after 2013, I believe, there was the big sign out front that said KHSAA state champions. I mean, that was such a cool thing to witness. Getting to go to Rupp Arena when my team, I didn't play basketball, but I think my junior year, the Indians made it. So I got to go to Rupp Arena and see some of those games against, I think, Ballard or Franklin County or something like that. So that was always fun. Really cool experiences there. Just a lot of fun with Madison Central growing up.
I think my Harlan County Black Bears put Harris and them out of the playoffs maybe his sophomore year. Maybe I think he was like Michigan was in on him already at that point. Everybody was already trying to get him. Then the next year,
trying to get who?
Damian Harris.
Yeah.
They played Harlan County.
Patriots legend.
They played Harlan County in the playoffs, and Harlan County put him out. The next year, he ran wild, and they got revenge. But the Black Bears went 1-1 against Damian in the playoffs there. So yeah, that was fun.
I always got a good, pleasurable feeling whenever we would go play that team in the South, and their big banner on their stadium said runner up, not champion, runner up. That felt good to me. So also I actually wanted to add this to your point about Western. What was interesting to me where I'm at now growing up, a lot of my friends that I played football with, several of them would go on to play at EKU. I don't know that there's still the faux pas for Western that there used to be, where they've kind of moved. This might surprise you a little bit if you didn't know it. I've talked to a lot of my friends, and they were talking about different schools, and they said, I can't rep anybody who goes to Murray State because EKU and Murray have had a lot more run-ins lately in football than maybe EKU and Western have. So there's a lot more. I don't know that that's everybody, but especially if you're big into EKU football, there might be, and basketball as well, there might be more of a disdain for Murray as opposed to some of those other schools like Western used to be.
Yeah, interesting.
What do you think about your Steelers? Aaron Rodgers is back. Mike McCarthy is back in his hometown. And your thoughts on all of that?
I'm hoping, there's this just vibrant remembrance of what they did in Green Bay, and they can bring it to Pittsburgh. But that was so many years ago. And I don't know. I'd like to see a playoff win is what I would like to see. But I wasn't last year. I was not a huge fan at first of Aaron Rodgers, but then I was like, hey, we got Mason Rudolph, everything's good. We can bring him in if we need to, if Rodgers gets hurt. So I was okay with it because of that. Now I'm kind of excited about Will Howard and maybe Mason being there. So bring Aaron again because I like the quick decisions he makes and the way he gets the ball out. So if we can get the defense going, which they should have been better last year with all the money they spent. Then if they can get it going from this jump this year, maybe we'll get things turned around a little better.
They kind of old on that side of the ball, though.
I know.
I know. Long in the tooth over there.
Yep.
You and Jeff Drummond, September 20th. It's on. September 20th. It's going down.
I got you. We should go. Is it in Pittsburgh?
No, I think it's in Foxborough.
All right, that's not an easy draw. I bet you would.
That's his second home, man. He's
I love Foxborough. The Patriots Hall of Fame is always fun to go through. Love it.
So what's coming up next on BBN tonight, man? What y'all got?
So probably this is the roughest time of the year to ask me that question because I would have said that we were live tomorrow night with UK playing. Because they were, they had won tonight, but since that didn't happen, we don't have softball. It's now, I guess, looking towards hopefully having an NCAA tournament with them. Also, we got track and field, men's golf. Well, obviously, women's golf's headed to the nationals. That's an incredible story that they had, on that last round. One of the men's players, Jacob I'm gonna have to look at my email to see who it was, but he had a great round today, 7 under par, and they're unfortunately sitting in ninth, so they're gonna have to do what the women did, have a big final round and move up the leaderboard to be able to advance. But we've got them as well, so it's a matter of just what are we going to talk about this year? Whatever we can find, because that's through the summer. We don't go on hiatus; we keep it going, and so we're always happy when the TBT comes along.
Yeah,
Got the ISCO Golf Championship. At least Cooper Musselman's in it that I know of that went to UK, so we'll follow him. It's things like that. It's finding the stories to tell that have that UK slant, because we can always fill 3 minutes in sports with something. Half hour every night with only UK. A little more difficult in the summer, but we've made it happen all these years.
absolutely.
Yeah, and I'll add there for you, Jacob Lang with the
Lang,
historic. I think the program best 18-hole record. I mean, that's just an
tied
insane
the
show.
best. Yeah,
So Jacob Lang deserves all the praise there for.
yes, thank you.
Yes, he does. So good stuff, everybody. Congratulations to them, and like you said, we're keeping our eye on them. It's that time of year and telling their story. So appreciate everything y'all do, BB, tonight. Appreciate you with the Cat's Paws, Cole. Appreciate everybody that took the time to watch and or listen whenever they check out this episode of Believe in Kentucky. So enjoy the playoffs if you're watching them. Wimby's insane. Knicks and Cavs, we'll see what happens with that. But, it's a Spurs Thunder final, I think. One of those is going to walk away with it, whoever wins that. But we'll be checking it all out. Y'all continue to check us out here on Believe in Kentucky. For Keith and Cole, my name is Vinny Hardy. We'll say go Cats and see everybody next time. Thank y'all for listening and watching.